creativity, I don't think is really taught. You can be taught how to follow a process, and you can be taught how to speak articulately. You strongly believe you can be taught how to pitch, how to react quickly, how to respond when a client says, I hate it, and you're like, want to cry, but you can't. But I don't think you can teach creativity. I think it's something you either have or you don't.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Space by Stansons. Today, I'm with Jenny Edwards, Creative Director at Oktra. And I love the energy for a start. The whole...
Too much energy?
No. There's not a thing. It's not a thing in my book. Not a thing is too much energy. It's just go. Yeah, no, so it's wicked. So the energy's wicked. A really great story from her career, but also her personal interests and how that pulls into workplace design. So I'm gonna get I don't like the word under the skin.
It does sound weird, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's really weird.
Yeah, I'm feeling about the layers.
And get under your skin, and I'm like, oh, that sounds a bit irritating. So I'm not going with that, but I'm just kind of dig into it. Let's go with that. But hey, welcome, Jenny. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining. Right, kicking off, creative director. Paint that quickly in a quick run, what that looks like.
So essentially, we run the whole process in terms of the design aspect. So typically, you might get a project that comes in either as a pitch, it may be a client that you've worked with in the past, and then typically our business is kind of set up in teams, and then some of us are in central. So you may go to an initial meeting when the kind of project is just an idea, and then that's when you start doing your space plans, etc. And then when it becomes a bit more of we know when the pitch is, there's a submission, there's a process, then that's when we involve the wider team, and then typically under us we'll have other creative designers, technical designers, and then also visualizers. And then we work kind of alongside pre-con who do the costing, etc. So you kind of run the whole design process towards pitch, and then you're working alongside pre-con, like I said, and then usually a project director who's kind of globally in charge of that project, and usually the team as well. So it's kind of working alongside a lot of different people, and it's kind of keeping all the trains on the track, so to speak, and then having a global kind of overview. But I think the best bit is kind of, because you have that kind of step back picture, you kind of see how all the pieces are kind of running, and then it's quite nice to kind of watch all those things come together with everybody. And I think it kind of gives you that really good ability to work with lots of different people. I think sometimes you get in these silos of working by yourself.
Yeah.
And I think now in these kind of roles is good because we kind of are dashing around, speaking to this person, speaking to this, going to graphic designer and saying, okay, we've got this, working back and forth with the visualizers. So I think it's kind of it's a very varied role. I think it's kind of, if you look at all the people in our business in these types of roles, they're all such different people.
I'm with you because I like to talk to loads of people as well in a day, but how do you keep that organized and notes or are you just super?
Partially it's about having a good memory, but I think partially it is, for me, I keep notes on everything that ever happens in every meeting. So I have a kind of OneNote, tabs for every project, every meeting I've ever had. Even if it's a kind of meeting with a client 2 years ago, I'll still keep the notes from that because sometimes things come back around. The client who they said, oh, we've lost the building, we're not doing that job. They may come back and then say, oh, do you remember that conversation we had 2 years ago? At least you can pull it up and then refer to kind of what you had before. So I think it's about, for me, the meticulous kind of note taking almost takes it out of my brain, puts it on the paper, and then I can move on to something else.
I think I must have had every note taking platform, app,
OneNote,
software, real notebooks. I've done it all.
I think what's good about it is you can search within it also for a word. So if I'm looking for you, I could search in my OneNote and it'll show me the pages that have your name on. I'll be like, oh yeah, that's last time we discussed this. Or you ever use Miro board? Some people call it.
Yeah.
I am obsessed with it.
Oh, right. So
love it.
I've been invited to them. I've always thought it looks amazing.
It's so great.
But I've got this really reserved thing where basically I do everything. Every new thing, I do it. Because I just, so I'm a bit of a magpie like that. Yeah. And so I think, I know, I mustn't do it. I'll delete it. It's rubbish. I promise it's rubbish. And I won't hear anything about it. But now I'm on here, I can't not hear about it. So talk to me.
It's great because you can see the process. That's what I love about it. It's you can say, okay, this is where we've started. And it's basically just an endless digital whiteboard. And there's no end to it. There's no linear way. And there's some people in the office, and I love it, they're just so linear with it. And it's so controlled. And it's mine is more like that, which is here are my kind of original things. And then here's where we've gone. And then this project that I've been working on for the past 2 years, I've had the same Miro board for that project for 2 years. So you can see 2 years worth of thinking on this board. And it's so fascinating to me to see where you started off and all these conversations that we had when we first met the client, all these things. I love Pinterest, but then the problem with Pinterest is that it's limited because with things like Miro, because you can use it on the iPad, I can do sketches on top of the board. Whereas with Pinterest, you're limited to images, and it's fabulous to see all your images together, but sometimes I might want to overlay it with a sketch of the reception desk and then put the materials next to it. And with Pinterest, it's like a very linear formation. This is much more overlapping, and I kind of think it's a lot more beautiful the way it kind of all lays out, you know?
I always think that Pinterest takes a bit of explaining as well, because I save this picture, but it's that bit that was why I saved the picture. Don't look at this bit.
Yeah.
Because that's not right. And I don't want to give the wrong impression, it was like the idea of a skylight, not necessarily that skylight. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
You like the light, the way that the light comes down and kind of...
Exactly. Yeah. And so sometimes I have really organized Pinterest. The only thing I hate about Pinterest is it all gets a bit samey. Like it needs to somehow get more content on there or something.
I think so. I think it's like you can also go around in these, like, I call them Pinterest holes.
Yeah.
And the problem now a little bit is there's a huge influx of these AI generated images. Yeah. So quite often you will pin something and then, and it shows you similar images. And I'm like looking at them, I'm thinking, it's a shame because like 70% of them are AI generated. And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, it's beautiful, but it's not real. And it's also couldn't be real because of, you look at it, you're thinking you can never build it. Yeah. And it's like, I think AI can be great when it's used in the right way, but I think it's quite dangerous certain people, because what you've got now is sometimes clients using AI to create an image. Mm-hmm. And whilst AI can create an image, there's no soul. There's no reason, right? I like brown chairs and I like cats. And you could put that in and it would give you an image and it has brown chairs and it has cats, right? But it doesn't mean anything. It's just pictures. It's just Pinterest.
Yeah.
It's just Pinterest gathers, but putting your Pinterest images into an image, that's one main thing. Yeah. And I think and that's what people always, people say to you, like, what do you think about AI? Do you think AI is going to take your job? Get that? I bet you probably get that all the time. Get it all the time, especially if people had a few drinks. Do you think AI is going to take your job?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, me personally, I don't think so, because like the whole reason that most designers, and I can only really speak to myself, but I think most designers, for similar reasons, is that we absolutely love it. And it's like you come for design with a soul. Mm-hmm. And it's like if you're looking at a project and I can tell you every detail about why did you do that? Why do we pick this finish? Why do we do this? Why is this at this height? There's a reason behind everything. Mm-hmm. And that reason may be completely practical, which is the sprinklers are here and we have to do this, or it may be completely impractical. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? It's because we wanted to create this arrival experience, and we wanted to create this moment. So you built a shield so that when you come around the wall and you get that, that wow moment, which is what we're all looking for in the project, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I think with AI, there's no that thought process.
And strangely, it's also quite repetitive.
Yeah.
Because it is generative AI. Like, it is getting quite repetitive. Like, especially now it's been out for a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, you're starting to see it again and again. Other thing I think about AI, especially when people are involved, like if it's a PT or like interior design, like anything that's about people, which is most things, it's like, it falls over a bit because you're designing for people. You've got to think about emotions and neurodiversity or
that inclusivity
arrival experience and designing in pinch points so people collaborate, or designing out flow so people move quicker, and like
that kind of thinking is just too advanced, I think. And I don't know maybe it'll get there. I don't know. I can't speak for the future.
But I just think there's something that humans evolve. Yeah. So we're not always the same. So like me and you today would work differently, like how Gen Z are going to work.
Yeah.
And so like you've got, every project has got its own merits. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And you've got to apply your human brain to that.
Well, this is what I mean. And I think it's like, you don't want everything to look the same. You don't want everything to look one way. And I think like, that is the beauty of a human being being part of it. Like if you look at jobs as an individual merits, like we've been collaborating with, I don't know, Neko Health. And like, if you look at those jobs, most people don't believe it's a real image because it's so perfect. It's so coordinated. It's so beautiful, but it's every single aspect of it has been thought through by their designers, by our designers, by our technical team, like, and it's incredible. Mm-hmm. But the level of coordination and the level of detail it takes to create a Pinterest or Instagram moment is on TikTok. People have done these amazing like walkthroughs of it, and everyone's like, this is a real space. It's not AI because people think it's an AI space because it's so coordinated. Mm-hmm. You don't know where the sprinklers are. You don't know where the grill is because it's hidden behind a little recess in a plasterboard. Like it's so clever how it's all designed and thought through in these moments. And they've really thought about the user experience. Mm-hmm. And I think designing spaces like that is possible, but it's it takes a level of coordination beyond which most projects don't have the capability or time really to actually design, because it's so difficult to do that kind of job. And I think AI makes it look so easy. And that's what I think is a shame, because when you look at an image like that, when I look at those images that they've built for Neko and how amazing it looks in the images, and you know how much work was put in by all of the people involved in order to get it to that point, and it's an incredible outcome. They look beautiful. But it's like, I think AI does it a disservice, but it makes it look like it's so easy, like you can just do it. And it's like, no, because you do need to think about where your sprinklers, where's your escape signage, you know, all those boring things. But you still need them.
That sort of wreck the space. Fire extinguishers. And
Fire extinguishers, those hideous silver ones on the stand.
Cables, everything.
Cable management, all of these things that you need. How do you make it look beautiful? And I think like AI just makes it seem like anyone can do it. And I don't believe that anyone can do it, at least not at the moment anyway, and not compliant, certainly. No. That's the challenge.
Yeah, I'm on a project at the minute, and it's so beautiful. And I'm just like, by the way, that's an AI image, so like, that wouldn't happen because there needs to be a join there.
Yeah,
I've said somewhere recently that the design process is really important. That you kind of you could AI it, whatever, but you lack a whole load of thought, like deep thought.
Yeah,
and when you get to build, or even more so finishing and dressing, all of those decisions will be really easy. Just look forward like 16 weeks, or look forward 6 months, because all of that visualize and that doesn't look good there, or should we put that there? And those like kind of
those moments.
And it might be taking 3 days to do it instead of 3 minutes in AI, but that's kind of rubbing the corners off and really polishing it up so that when you get down here, it's all just like this. Yeah. And there's no surprises, there's no extra costs. Oh, we need this lampshade yet, but that's obvious because we thought that through. And
well, you can always tell, I think, visuals that have been done in haste, and sometimes we have to because it's just time scales, sometimes you have to, which no designer particularly likes doing them in like a couple of days, but sometimes you just have to from time scales. And I think it's interesting to see that typically, not always, those visuals that have been created in haste, usually the scheme you build is not those, whereas the visuals that someone has developed over time with the client, with the visualizer in tandem, that maybe taken a lot longer to produce, maybe not consistently, maybe it's been, process. Those visuals tend to be pretty spot on.
Yeah.
And I think it's amazing, when they show you the visual, and then you show you the real space.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's great design. That's great design when you've really thought about it and you've really planned it. And it's like, rather than sometimes we've got a bad habit a little bit, I think, of doing visuals too early. I think because D&B and consultative, they look at it in a different way. Consultative, you don't do visuals kind of till the end. Like, you've already decided what you're getting. We've already sold it to you. But then we do the visuals just as like whereas in D&B, it's almost the opposite. You do the visuals first, and then you it's almost like a teaser. It's like a design trailer, like what's to come.
Almost like a sales.
Yeah, a little bit. And I mean, it is sales. I mean, everything is sales. Consultative is sales and D&B is sales. I think it's that you talk about it in a different way.
Yeah. This actually does bring on, because you did mention Perkins and Will. You were there, and then you were in D&B and everything. What is the bit you miss about Trad, Perkins and Will the most?
I miss the people. I love the people at Perkins and Will. I met so many lovely people there. And I think it was just a very nice, supportive, friendly, just really decent bunch of people. And I think it was because the thing is about when you work in a consultancy and an architecture or just a design business, because everyone is a designer, it's like kinsmate, you know what I mean? That you have it like, you can go into the tea point and be like, everyone look at this material, and everyone's like, oh, and it's like, because you're all of that mindset.
Yeah.
And I think it's like, that was really lovely. And because they push sustainability so much, but they don't just push it as like, it's not just the sales things for them. It's like, I always wanted to work there. And then sometimes you think, if I always wanted to work there and I actually work there, is it going to be a big disappointment? Because, sometimes things are.
Yeah.
You think, when you're a kid and you really want something, and then you get it and you think, oh, actually, it's not that good.
Yeah, whatever.
It's just, it's marketing. But then I think when I got there, because I've always had an interest in sustainability and sustainable design specifically, and I really wanted to work there because of that, because of how much they push it. And then when I worked there, I was surprised by, in a good way, about everyone actually does believe it. And I thought it was really nice how much they haven't just like bought into it, and it isn't just a sales things for them. Like, the people that work there do genuinely actually care. And I think that to me is what's really nice, that everyone has bought into it so much. Like, I wouldn't say, some people say it's like a cult, that sounds, it has negative connotations, but I think in a really good way, everyone is super on board with it. And I like that for their clients, it's not an option. it's not like, oh, do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? It's like they have a specific set of criteria of things that you're not allowed to specify that are the red list or things like that. And then they don't give people an option. It's like, that's what they just do. And I think a lot of businesses would do well to do that, which is like, quite often we'll start off on really good principles and then sometimes it gets derailed for various reasons, client, budget. And then, but with Perkins, they don't really give that option typically.
Yeah.
And I think like to be so strong in your convictions of this is the right way to do it, I think is really, really cool.
It's like finding your people.
A little bit, yeah. And like with Asif, who's like the head of sustainability there, and I think like he just has so much knowledge. And I think people like that, it's like, if you're really into it, it's just fascinating.
And so then you went D&B. What's the best bit about D&B? Like, why wouldn't you go back? Or
so I originally moved. It's funny because I actually ran into. So I was the Perkins office is actually around the corner from where I work now. Yeah. I actually ran into someone the other day, and he was like, "Oh, would you ever come back?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't think so. I've never been back to somewhere that I worked previously, and I have a lot of good memories there. But I think it's almost like once you've moved on, I think I don't know. I've never really couldn't imagine myself going back. I mean, never say never. If you ever want to come back and offer me a job, but I think I moved from Perkins to Maris because
is that quite a shock?
It was a culture shock. The culture's super, super different. A lot of people have a lot of strong opinions about Maris. I personally really liked it. So dynamic. It's so like loud and there's always something going on. It's never dull. There's always something. And I just like, because I'm a very energetic, loud person, I think for me, like I kind of thrive in those types of environments. No one's ever going to be like, you're too loud.
No.
That's never going to happen at Maris.
No,
like,
never.
They'll be like, you're not being loud enough.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, and I kind of love that dynamism that's kind of, there's like a vibe and it's like super energetic and super intense. And some people find it too much and they're like, oh, it's too much for me. Like I feel like it's too much.
Yeah.
Whereas like, if you like that type of thing, I think it's really good. And I think coming out of COVID and it was to try and like jolt myself out of this kind of, I think COVID brought up a lot of bad habits for a lot of people. And I think like it was that kind of, right, I'm going to be back in the office. I want to be back in an energetic, busy environment and, lots of energetic people. And I think like it was really good for that. And actually looking at design in a completely different way than I never had before. I think at Perkins, there's whether people like it or whether they don't, there's a more of a kind of, it's not a narrow view of design, but there's kind of a more recognized look, I would say, for Perkins Mall projects. And to me, they're absolutely beautiful.
Almost,
but it's not as rigid as like Foster's, but there's something there. But if you go to them, then typically you're wanting something along those lines. And they're beautiful. Whereas when you look at like a D&B and a Maris offering, there's no style, there's no point of view necessarily, rather than the individual person. And I kind of like the idea of that absolute freedom almost. And it was almost overwhelming because you're like, oh, I can, and then you would say, well, what should I do? And they'll say, do we want? Do anything. And you're like, oh. And then there's kind of this option thing. And it was, instead of doing this one option, it was such a different process where you're doing these multiple options. And I think it really challenged you to not just think of one idea, but sometimes, I don't know if you've ever done these life drawing classes and they'll give you 5 seconds to draw something. 5 seconds, 5 seconds, 5 seconds. And then where you start and then where you end is always super different. And I think the idea of doing like a couple of different options or things like that actually drives out of you something that's completely different than where you would start. And I think it was very challenging in that aspect, which I think is really good if you want to grow in your career, to challenge yourself. I think you have to be quite a confident person. There's a lot of strong characters, which I would say I liked it because I'm a strong character, but maybe not everyone would thrive in that. I think it gets probably a mixed bag, which I think is a little bit unfair because I think it's, your personal experience, I guess, and mine was good.
It's just the culture, isn't it? It worked for some people. It worked for others. I
think it's like let's say a work hard, play hard type mentality. And I think like the atmosphere is just different. But I think the team that you're on and the people that are there, and there's some really great design that when you speak to people, and I am guilty of thinking that the people that are in trad and the people that are in D&B, in terms of design anyway, I always thought it'd be two completely different types of people. But it's actually not at all. I mean, there's so much crossover now.
Definitely recently, hasn't it? Like probably since COVID, like you were saying. I'm not sure when it started, but it seems to be getting more and more all the time.
I think a lot of people, and I include myself in this, were a little bit, I don't want to say snobby, but I think there's a slight aspect of if you've been trained as an architect and you've gone through this very traditional, very linear, formal process, that in some type of way your approach may be slightly better than someone who maybe has come from a different avenue. Whereas now, I actually don't believe that at all, because I think creativity, I don't think is really taught. You can be taught how to follow a process, and you can be taught how to, speak articulately. I strongly believe you can be taught how to pitch. But I don't think you can teach creativity. I think it's something you either have or you don't. And I think you can teach so many things. You can teach about how to react quickly, how to respond when a client says, I hate it. And you're want to cry, but you can't. Yeah. And I think there's so many things that you can teach people, right? But creativity, I think is it's in there. Yeah. And sometimes you have to bring it out in people, right? And sometimes it's about having confidence and trusting yourself and saying, trust this process. And I think having experienced both environments, I think that the people in both are just the actual, when you get down to it, and the creativity, that innate creativity is the same. It's all just about, it's just a different process, just a different process that you follow. But the people are the same in terms of creativity. And I kind of love that.
I do think that back in the, a few years ago, I don't know how, 10 years ago, whatever, D&B had a bit of a bad rep, that it was very cookie cutter projects, fly by night.
Terrible, wasn't it?
Kind of fly by night, builders sort of thing, just doing a bit of design and
it got a bad rep of they would come in and they would take a beautiful, traditional design, and then they would rip it apart and they would, put in horrible vinyl and awful stuff. But whether it was like that in the past, I can't speak to it because I didn't work in it. But now it's not like that.
No, definitely not.
You can't do things that aren't compliant. It won't get signed off. Everyone has all these formal, health and safety processes. It's a very formal process of making sure things are compliant because, number one, we have to, but it's also the fact that you're not allowed to show someone one thing and build something else. You can't show someone a wood floor and put in vinyl without them signing off and agreeing it. Now you have to get every single finish has to be signed off. The client has to be a completely robust procedure to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether that's something that's come more recently or it's just, processes evolve, but I think it's a common misconception. And it was a common misconception I held also because I thought that's what they did.
Yeah, same, yeah.
Which I didn't know anyone in D&B, so I don't know why I thought that. I just, obviously, it was just what other people say.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anyone in D&B. And I think now, obviously, I know a lot of people in D&B and also a lot of people still in trad. And I think it's funny that there's still misconceptions about that and about sustainability, that, everyone in D&B doesn't care about sustainability and that there's no, there's no kind of thinking about it. And I don't think that's true. And I think
you're a living proof.
I think it's about the person, the designer specifically. It is the company, but I think designers need to take responsibility for, they have this thing about tread lightly on the planet, right? And I think it's super key. People used to say a design and build project, you're looking at a 2-year lifespan, right? And I really, really, really strongly disagree with that. I think that now we don't want a turnaround in 2 years. I'll do your other office in a different location, but I don't want to be doing that same office in 2 years' time, because to me, then we haven't really designed it very well in the beginning. Obviously you make tweaks, you live in an environment, you make tweaks, right? That's just what happens. But I think if you're wholesale changing an environment that you built 2 years ago, there's a flaw, which may be the design isn't thought through, you haven't had enough time, maybe the client didn't know what they want, maybe their business has entirely changed, in which case, it's more understandable. But I think now we really strongly are pushing more towards designing for lease events. If you're taking this space for another 20 years, I want what we put in to have the ability to be there for 20 years. And there's a lot of talk now about, should we do things like material passports where you can see the product life cycle. So if I put something in and then, facilities change hands, people move on. So how do you track the life of that product from when you put it in? So we're talking about with a couple of different companies in terms of material passports. So you can actually, when you do a building and it's a Cat A and you put all your Cat A things in, that all those lights that you might put in, that you can track how old they are. I mean, ideally you wouldn't do Cat A at all.
Yeah.
Because I think Cat A is a contentious issue in the industry anyway.
Yeah.
I didn't know that there's a whole market for, you can get everything basically secondhand. There's pre-used lights, fan coils.
Commercial.
Yeah. There's a whole secondhand market I didn't know existed. So there's a couple of companies that are doing it. Material Index are one that we have worked with. They're an independent company that we kind of been speaking with, and we've used them on a few things recently, they'll come in and do a full audit of everything. And then what they do is they take the products and they will sell them on the market to trades, so the client then can see, okay, that carpet that I've taken out, and if they can't sell them, then they'll donate them. There's a lot of different things that they do in order to make sure that those products don't go to landfill. And I think the main thing for me is I just don't want to be creating needless waste. And I think that people think it's just about the product, but it's so much more than product, so much more than a bigger picture of the product, right? It's so much more than that. It's not just what is the product made of, where does it come from, but it's how are you using the product? What are you designing it into? Like the most efficient way and the most sustainable way is to design a building on a grid, right? Most buildings are designed on a 3 meter or 5 meter grid in terms of structurally. That's how it works, right? So when we get products, and most products like plasterboard, acoustic panels, etc., are 1.2 by 2.4. So if you think about it, if you have that in a, say, 3, it doesn't fit into the same grid, but then if you put your walls in, so then what you need to do is to cut your panels. So either we need to change the size of the panels that we use, or we need to work around the size of the panels that we have. So, for example, what we're doing on a project now is looking at zero waste. So we've got existing rooms. We can't change them. That's the existing rooms. They exist. The building itself is a funny shape. So, it is what it is. It's not on a standard grid. It's like, it's like this table. So, there's a lot of interesting things, but explaining to the client the approach, which is, this is zero waste. We're going to buy standard size panels. We're going to mount them on the wall, and then we're going to have a gap around, and we're going to paint that. And then that's it. And then that means that we don't need to do cutouts. It's not on the same wall as our AV. Our AV is over here on a painted wall. You can change your bracket to whatever size you want, change your screen 2 years down the line. Fine, my panels are just there. Same with ceiling panels. We're working on standard sizes. We're not doing bespoke products. Bespoke products are fundamentally one of the biggest producers of waste.
Yeah.
Because a manufacturer has their machine set up, because the manufacturer doesn't want wastage, right? When they create products, because then it's waste of money. They're throwing it away. Yeah. So they've got their machine set to maximize product and to minimize waste naturally. So if a manufacturer is selling a product in a certain size and you ask for a bespoke size, the reason why bespoke prices are higher is because that bit that you've cut off, they're probably throwing that away. So if you're designing on the standard sizes that the manufacturer does, then from the point of manufacture, you're creating less waste. And then when you bring it to your site, then you're not cutting it, you're creating less waste in general. But it's also speed of install. I just have to sit my panels on the wall, and you have to make sure that it's adhesives, things that low VOC, because you can have the best panel in the world, but you're sticking it on with the worst glue, or you're not using certain hangers. Then there's all of those things that can make it fall over. But I think that the amount of time and effort that it puts into not only come up with the ideas, but then to implement them, I think is quite a commitment. We have to make the commitment ourselves to do it right.
Yeah. And
it's harder. And I won't deny it's harder. It's harder for me to buy secondhand clothes than it is for me to just go into, Primark.
Yeah.
But I'm, made a commitment a long time ago that I'm not going to buy fast fashion. I don't want to contribute to that industry. Other people that do, you can't judge everybody else on what they do. I think you can only control what you do. And I think if you let yourself, you can be very, angered by a lot of things you can't control. So it's not worth it. But I think the way I always see it is, you can only control what you're doing. You can only control your reaction to things and how you deal with things.
Yeah.
And if a client comes to you and they're saying that they want not just a product that is an accreditation, box ticking, sustainable project, which is fine, and it does make you adhere to a certain set of criteria, but we all know that sometimes it does turn into a little bit of box ticking, which is, I think, a shame.
Yeah.
You want to do it because
you care.
Yeah. You want to do it because you care, not because you're trying to hit a set of criteria. You can still hit the criteria, but you don't necessarily need to do the box ticking exercise. And I think looking at it from a holistic standpoint is such a great way to be. And I think a lot of clients get really nervous when sustainability is mentioned in any format, because they immediately think it's going to cost them loads of money.
But if you what you're saying isn't just about designing with recycled materials, as good as that is, and I'm all for that as well, and obviously push that wherever I can, but it's really about designing out waste, like architecturally or structurally, or in the actual components of the building and how it's put together. And I think that's where so much waste is anyway. I think that's where so much time is, what you're saying, and there's so much labour. And so if you can design sustainably, it should actually be cost effective.
It should be cost effective. And it's also things like designing for dismantle. So really, when you design joinery, the old school way to do it is glue, everything's glued.
Yeah.
And then in 5 years' time, your business needs might have changed and you might think, well, we don't want to have, I don't know, bleacher seating. We've all done a million bleacher seats in our life. So you might think, well, we don't really need these bleacher seats anymore. We now want to have a more inclusive approach, which is not bleacher seating because they're not inclusive. So it's having something that's more level, and then the person who's talking is on a stage rather than. So now we might do it the opposite way. So instead of having people sitting on tiered seating, whereas if you've got different accessibility needs, then you can't get up there. So you've got a worse viewing position. What now we actually look at is changing that. So the person who is presenting is on a stage, and you can obviously do a lifting platform to that stage. And then everyone who's seating can be sitting on a flat floor. So it's so easy to access. So it's just about sometimes changing how you look at things without necessarily affecting the design in a negative way. And I think that's what's really interesting when you hear other people's perspectives on it.
Yeah.
It's just about changing your perspective. It's not necessarily about affecting the design. And I think the main thing is designing for people. Designing for people is the number one important thing in any project, right? And the fundamental fact is if you design something that is a healthy environment, that is for those people. Mm-hmm. You have to look at the VOC levels, and anything that is off-gassing, you're going to get more people off sick. You're going to get people with headaches, who have to go home. There's all these things where actually fundamentally it'll negatively affect your business. Sometimes people, especially financial people, they'll be like, oh, well, it doesn't matter to us and it doesn't affect us. And it does affect your business because fundamentally only 66% of an office is utilized at one time.
Yeah.
That's a huge, because people are off sick, people on holiday, etc. So that's a huge proportion of time and money of a portion of rent that you're spending that's not occupied. So really, you should be aiming for like an 80% utilization of your office space to maximize your rental costs, the amount you're paying in rent for an office. So if you can minimize the amount of time that people are off sick, then you're going to increase that. And that's where I think sometimes you have to explain that to people, because people think that, people say to me, oh, you're the sustainability person, you just love it. And I'm like, I do love it.
I had never thought it that way, because I walk around London and think I've walked in that building. And as soon as you make that 5 people, that's not very big companies at 5 people. And then wow, what an impact we can have. That's a really a good way of looking at it. So if somebody's feeling that, what impact can they have? And maybe actually, you can. Let's
easy to feel like a small cog, I think. And especially if you're more junior, and sometimes you feel like, oh, I'm just, I don't really have that much project impact and stuff like that, which I don't think is necessarily true. I think it's like you do feel like that, especially when you're a junior person, you think, oh, no one's really listening to what I'm saying. But a lot of the time it's trying to absorb what you can from everybody else, and knowing that even at that point when you're, fairly early in your career, that you're absorbing all those things. And I think that's why people like Asif and, people that are pushing that sustainability message in a way that's palatable for the general population, and that people understand and get it, and it's not overly complicated and it's not overly academic in a way that doesn't have real life implications. I think those people are super key in any business, and whatever way you want to look at it, those people are so important, because those are like the people that are flying the flag, and they're letting people kind of understand that message of like, you actually can have an impact just by making these small things. And as you grow in your career, your voice gets bigger, right? And that's why I always say that everyone always says, I've got a lot to say. I've got a big mouth. I know I have a big mouth. But I think it's like, if you are that person who has, a strong character if you have a message that you're pushing, I want to push that message, because I do genuinely believe it's so important.
I also think even if you're not a confident person, you attract what you are.
Yeah.
So if you're clear about what you are, you will attract it, and then you'll start to pick up the more sustainability is your thing. You'll start to pick up more sustainable projects, and then maybe you'll start to be a sustainable influencer within your business, or like head of or something like that.
So you don't always need to be the loudest voice.
No.
I mean, I am the loudest voice, but you don't. I think people think like, oh well, I'm not the loudest voice. I'm not the project lead, and you're like, but you can, just because your voice isn't the loudest, just because you might not be the most competent person, doesn't mean that you can't still have an impact on things. And I think it's just that sometimes, that's what I was saying about people think, oh, it doesn't affect, I can't have much impact, but I really do think that you can. And I think it's just small things. It's the same thing in your personal life, right? Like people buying things from Temu, buying things from all these
Shine, or whatever it's called.
Sheen. And I think it's an education piece, right? I can understand that if you were 12 years old and I want to buy a top if I can go to, a certain brand and buy a top for £100, which I probably can't afford on 12, but I can go on Shein and I can get 10 tops for £20. I mean, you're probably going to buy from Shein, right? But it's kind of the same thing in the building industry. You don't want to be the Temu builder. And especially for clients, for clients to have the understanding and the visibility. If someone's coming in at such a low price, I would really want to drill down into those numbers to understand, how is it so cheap? Where are you getting those products from? Is it comparable to what someone else might be specifying? Is it, we used to call it equal or approved. And when we used to do the MBS schedules and the specs, and we write it, and it would be so limited that you can only have that one product pretty much. But I think sometimes people are so blinded by what they see as a low upfront cost. They don't realize that the operating cost of that is going to be much longer over time. So for your business, whilst the CapEx cost is low, your OpEx cost is high.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm like, well, maybe you would want to spend more initially, but over time, that's going to stand the test of time. It's durable. You're not going to have to, do the access statement where we're going to change the T points if somebody with accessibility needs joins the business. No, do it from day one. I don't want to write an access strategy. I want to design it properly from the beginning so everything is accessible and that you don't need to change it. So if someone joins the business with accessibility needs, you don't have to say, oh no, we need to make all these changes. It should be, join tomorrow. We're ready. We're a fully inclusive business. We're already prepared for you. So yeah, then maybe that CapEx cost might be a little bit higher, but actually now the gap isn't as big as what people I think that the gap is.
Yeah.
But it's the gap of you're just taking the cost from this column and putting it in this column because you're going to have to make the changes to the T points to make them accessible later. Well, why not just do it now?
Yeah.
And we as a business are strongly trying to push clients, and sometimes you have to challenge clients and you have to, you have to say, we really do believe this is the best way. I mean, it is technically building regulations, but it's like we strongly are trying to push everything should be accessible. We need to have color contrast. You need to do this. You need to do this. And it's not just because it's building regulations, and it's not just because it's good practice, but if you want to be an inclusive business and you want to attract the best talent, those are the things that you need to implement in your space in order to attract the best talent. I want to work at a business that's inclusive. I don't want to work at a business that is exclusionary. I mean, most people I don't think would, especially outwardly exclusionary. You want to work at somewhere that's inclusive. And I want to work somewhere that I know that is employing people for their talent, not for their abilities in either a physical or a mental well-being perspective. I want to work with people that are the best, regardless of what their other challenges may be.
Yeah.
And I think it's just a different way of looking at it, right? People think sometimes that inclusivity is this kind of like, it's the same as sustainability, right? People go, and they think, oh no, it's going to be all these silly things, but it's not. I think if you design it from the beginning, it can look so beautiful, done properly. I think anything you add in later, it's a shame, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I agree.
It's like you come in, you're just like, oh, I know. It's just, I just think it's like why we should just put it in from the beginning, and I think it'd be great.
Yeah.
And it's like now when you stand back and you look at it and you think you can tell when it's there from the beginning, and it's just like that's what you want to do. You want to walk away from the project and know that's it.
Yeah.
For the next however many years until your next lease event, you're good.
You're sorted. It's wrapped up. It's done.
Yeah.
No, I get it. Jenny, I could talk about this all day as well. Time
we'll be here till midnight.
Time isn't on our side. Before we go, I just want one real quick fire question for you. What do you listen to in terms of music or podcast or anything when you are working and you need to concentrate?
Ooh, I go for a bit of blues, actually. Like a little bit of blues, kind of. I don't like things with a lot of words because it distracts me. Just something instrumental.
Instrumental blues.
Yeah, like a kind of, just like a low, this kind of like when you go to those late night kind of jazz blues bars and there's like that guy on the piano in the background. It's like that.
Yeah, perfect. Banging. Oh, thank you so much, Jenny. It's been great to hear, especially all that sustainability story. Also, your like little IT tips, how to take meetings, Miro boards, everything like banging. I love hearing the transition from Perkins to D&B as well. But your insight into inclusivity, sustainability, that's absolutely, I'm like, yeah, it's a real listen. So thank you so much for joining.
Thank you very much for having me.
And if you've enjoyed the episode, please do the like and a whole rating thing, because it does help the show out. And we're dropping show notes on our website, stensons.co.uk/space. Thank you and goodbye.